Hello everybody and welcome to Parks Bros. It's Drew here, and today we're going to talk about what Six Flags Magic Mountain tweeted out just a couple of days ago. Let's discuss whether the park will ever get a Giga coaster. Six Flags Magic Mountain, if you did not know, is located in Valencia, California, and is currently home to 20 different roller coasters, meaning it has the world record for most coasters at one park. Now, if this wasn't impressive enough, they have plenty of world-class rides as well, including the 415-foot, 100-mile-per-hour Superman Escape from Krypton, the mind-bending, twisting 4D coaster X2, the dueling airtime machine Twisted Colossus, and so much more. At 10 a.m. on June 23rd earlier this week, the official Six Flags Magic Mountain account tweeted out, "Goliath is cool, but how about a Giga?" Now, if you're unsure on what that means, Goliath is the park's hypercoaster, meaning it has a height between 200 and 300 feet tall. And this tweet is pretty much teasing the idea of replacing it with a coaster that's 300 to 400 feet tall. Now, one of these rides, 300 to 400 feet tall and full circuit, have only been built a handful of times, and only 5 currently exist in all of North America, with the farthest west being in Ohio. More specifically, Orion at Kings Island, which has a 300-foot tall drop. But we'll bring up Orion later in this video, as we talk about the likelihood of Six Flags Magic Mountain ever getting a Giga coaster. Why would Magic Mountain ever get a Giga coaster, you might be asking? They already have 20 roller coasters. Well, a big reason in my mind, especially in the coming years, are all the insane world events happening in LA, with the first being the 2026 World Cup, which will feature SoFi Stadium as one of the stadiums used during the group stages as well as the later rounds of the tournament. This is a massive event, especially for a lot of people outside of the US that will most definitely be traveling here in order to root for their home country in one of the biggest sporting events in the world. And these games only take place once every couple of days, especially at each of the stadiums, so it's pretty likely that a lot of these visitors will be going to a lot of these cool attractions that we have around the area, including theme parks like Six Flags Magic Mountain. Now, this is not the only insane sporting event we have coming to the area fairly soon, as 2028 sees the Summer Olympics visiting LA for the first time since the 80s. We are literally experiencing the 2 largest sporting events in the world in a 2-year time span. So it only makes sense for a lot of these tourist areas and especially theme parks to add some of the best attractions they've ever done, as it could attract millions of new visitors. Another reason I can think of them potentially adding a 21st roller coaster is to stay on top of having that record we mentioned earlier, as Energylandia in Poland is looking to take it for themselves, as within the next couple of years they're definitely looking to get at least to 20 roller coasters at that park. Although I would definitely argue that's probably less on their mind than the Olympics and of course the World Cup happening fairly soon. Now that we've covered potentially some of the reasons they would want to build something like that, let's go over some of the companies and manufacturers that could potentially build a ride like this that Six Flags has worked with in the recent times. Out of all the manufacturers we've ever heard of to be able to potentially make something of this type, Mock Rides comes to mind. Intamin Amusement Attractions comes to mind, B&M comes to mind, and as well as RMC Rocky Mountain Construction. Now, Six Flags hasn't worked directly with Mock Rides for a new roller coaster or major attraction in quite some time, so I think we can scratch them off the list, as well as Intamin being in that same boat. As for B&M, the recently opened Dr. Diabolical's Cliffhanger at Six Flags Fiesta Texas opened just within the past couple of years and has been quite a big success as the first 95-degree beyond vertical drop B&M dive coaster. And of course, when it comes to RMC Rocky Mountain construction, the US-born company, Six Flags loves working with them, especially at Six Flags Magic Mountain, as Twisted Colossus and now their newest ride, Wonder Woman Flight of Courage, was constructed by them. Although I will have to say, if it were to be an RMC roller coaster, it would either be very, very similar in ride style to Twisted Colossus, having the same iBox track design system, or they would have to premiere a brand new ride type, something they have teased quite a lot over the recent years, and that is their T-Rex model. Realistically, a beefed up single rail coaster that has been in R&D for nearly a decade. Now that we've narrowed down some manufacturers, let's talk about some pros and cons as we head to the pros first. The first one I have is space. There are plenty of different places they could put this potential Giga coaster, whether they take out a ride like Goliath or Viper, using plots of older rides such as Roaring Rapids, or just going over event spaces as well as the front entrance and main road to the parking lot. There are more ways than you'd probably think they could configure this layout to work, especially if we bring in the idea of taking out part of the backstage area or potentially putting the station in close proximity to a ride like Scream or Twisted Colossus and using the back parking lot section and that surrounding area to create something of this magnitude. Heck, it could be in places that you wouldn't even expect, as Six Flags Magic Mountain does have quite the history of traveling over the pathways. If you look at something like Tatsu, that was their last B&M built at the park. Next up is a huge pro and kind of ties into the whole reason they would put this ride in the first place. It would be the first roller coaster of its kind in California and would draw in a ton more people, and of course add to that allure of visiting Six Flags Magic Mountain if you're traveling from out of the country or out of the state to watch the Olympics or the FIFA World Cup, and even just visiting LA in general. Now let's go to some of the cons that kind of make me wary about this ride ever happening. The first one, and probably the biggest one, is cost. As we talked about earlier, the latest Giga coaster and closest to California is Orion at Kings Island. This ride technically is only 287 feet tall, but it does feature a 300-foot drop and is one of the shorter of the Giga coasters, and it still came in at a whopping $30 million to construct in 2020. Now, inflation's been rising ever since then, meaning that if we were to ever see something like this come to fruition, it would cost more than that. And considering in California we do have different earthquake codes, an added support system and support structure will need to be configured for the ride itself, adding to that cost quite tremendously. So I wouldn't be shocked if we're looking at a ride like this at Magic Mountain potentially coming out to being $50 million or potentially more, and kind of makes me wary of the whole idea in the first place. Another con to mention is the fact that Six Flags has never built a Giga coaster. They built 2 Strata coasters, such as Superman Escape from Krypton in the same park, as well as the tallest roller coaster in the world, King Ka at Six Flags Great Adventure in New Jersey. But those are both launch coasters done in under 20 seconds, and at newest were constructed almost 20 years ago. Six Flags as a company as of late has been making smaller improvements, as well as adding in cloned rides. But again, bringing in Dr. Diabolical's Cliffhanger, they might be trying to break that mold a little bit. And with their newer CEO, Salim Basul, you never quite know exactly where we're heading with the company, especially in terms of new additions. They might surprise us. Now, this is neither a con or pro, as we pretty much finished up the list. But this is a question I have for you all. Does it make sense in the coaster collection that Six Flags already has? To me, it is quite similar to something like Goliath. But then again, if you focus more on the speed and less on the positive G's, it could create a completely different experience. So I want to leave that question to you. Make sure to let me know down in the comments below. And with that, I guess I should say this tweet at the end of the day is probably a troll, but in my mind, it's just super fun to theorize and think about the potential changes at the parks in the future. Personally, I don't think this is happening. I think it's a complete troll, but I'd love to know what you think. Is there a possibility of a Giga roller coaster coming to Six Six Flags Magic Mountain before the end of the decade. Thank you all so much for watching, though. I really do appreciate it. I love making these little speculation videos, and I hope you enjoy them as well. And make sure to subscribe for more news on Six Flags Magic Mountain, as well as the rest of the theme and amusement parks in all of Southern California, as I will be making videos about each and every one of them. But until next time, we'll see you on the next ride.